of Life Beyond Neurology series. Actually, this is a combined venture of the postdoctoral fellows in epilepsy who are alumni of Chitra as well. We had three wonderful and all the more inspiring talks, or rather, we love to call it discourses by Dr. Anand Kumar sir and Dr. Gopal Krishnadas. And today we have yet another person, Dr. Joshi, with us. So the whole process of this discourses, what we thought is to take us all through a very direct and honest engagement on what is the truth of life beyond our profession. So we were all discussing webinars on neurology and cardiology and whatnot, and then we thought we should drift a little away from that path so that a realization of self is what we all wanted. And the last three such talks or discourses were very wonderful, and we had wonderful feedbacks from several persons. So there are lot many people in our group, in the group of I'm talking about the neurologists, who always feel that truth is one, though the paths that take us to that end point are many. So in the next 1 hour, we want to hear from Dr. A.V. Joshi. And we think that this is something which we can carry back home and in our minds. It would be one of the paths of self-realization. So without much ado, I request Dr. M.D. Nair sir, who is my teacher and who was the head of Department of Neurology in Sri Chitra, to introduce our esteemed speaker before we can start the proceedings. So please.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Asha, and good evening to one and all who have assembled in this webinar. It's a great day today, and at the outset, I would like to wish all of our group a happy Onam, which is going to be around the corner. Today's topic chosen by Dr. Asha is Life Beyond Neurology, and in this session, it's going to be spoken by Dr. E.V. Joshi, and the topic he has chosen is Holistic Neurology, Finding Color in the World of Gray. So I think I'll just briefly touch upon this concept of holistic thing, and then I will go to introduce Dr. E.V. Joshi, whom I am meeting after several years.
35 years.
Yeah. When we were there in the NIMHANS, and I have good old memories of our togetherness under the able leadership of Professor Gauri Devi. But that I'll keep it for the next few minutes. I'll just introduce the concept of holistic thing. So holism is derived from a Greek word, holos, which means W-H-O-L-E, whole. And the other concept is healing and health. This stems from another Greek word called hale, H-A-L-E. This also means to make W-H-O-L-E, whole. So in a way, the healing, the health, and the holism is a continuum kind of a concept. And therefore, these are interrelated concepts. And it considers at the root the person as a whole, and it's concerned mainly with the interrelationship of the body, the mind, and the spirit, and promoting psychological and physiological well-being. Of course, there are several other dimensions, but these are the main dimensions. So not only when we are studying medicine, we are basically indulging in a physical kind of attention to the diagnosis and treating. But here, the concept is on illness and sickness. That means what is the impact of the disease on the individual? And that is the place when the holistic concept becomes very, very prominent. And in this, the patient is leading the, what we call the patient-led relationship and patient-focused in order to provide individual care as a whole person rather than fragmenting his care into different parts. So this is the thing. So it more or less sounds to the complete individual in a comprehensive package. So it's a little difficult concept because it is not being introduced in a medical curriculum, and though it is being now brought up in a big way in palliative medicine, which is actually happening at the end of the life situation. But it is more important in patients with cancer and other chronic degenerative neurological diseases. And just one of the essential qualities of a clinician is his interest in humanity. For the secret in the care of the patient is actually caring for the patient. So this is a very important mantra which was enunciated by Dr. Francis Peabody to his students at the Harvard as late as October 21st, 1926. So this is a quotation which has stood the test of time. So the bottom line is that the secret of success of caring for a patient is actually caring for the patient. Now I have got the pleasant duty to introduce our speaker today, Dr. E.V. Joshi. So when I visited his profile in the website, I was completely impressed the way he has evolved in his career. After he he did his DM from NIMHANS. And then he had very many achievements. And just to share with our viewers, he initially completed his DM neurology from the NIMHANS, and then that was during the 1983 to 1986. And he did his MD medicine from the Davangere Medical College. And following the DM neurology, he did a neuromuscular disease fellowship with the very prestigious, the Senior King Engel in neuromuscular diseases, which very few people can achieve to get that. And then finally, after that, he has worked for 20 long years at Mafraq Hospital in UAE, Abu Dhabi. That is from 1989 to 2009. A very long innings he had there, where he had the fortune of meeting several people. Professor Ramakrishna Pillai is there. He knows him very well there. And then Professor Anand Kumar was also there, he was mentioning. And then subsequently, after coming back, he joined as the head of the department neurology in Satya Sai Hospital, Bangalore, for again a period of 9 years from 2009 to 2018. Following that, he is now joined Brains Hospital in Bangalore, and he has his own driven clinic, the Joshi's clinic, neuro clinic. So he is very, very active in this area, and he is known for his very meticulous academic pursuits. And he has taken case-based neurology for residents on several occasions, a 2-day course. And this is available as a multimedia in DVD, which I think will be phenomenal for the PGs, because I know how he presents cases when we were there in NIMHANS, and Dr. Gauri David just could not pick any fault with his presentation. That was the nature where he was present, very meticulous. And then he has written a textbook on mental status examination in neurology with a companion multimedia CD. So this is also a very important contribution, especially with the one long case in neurology being higher mental function, and our coaching in higher mental function is little problem. So therefore this tutorial based thing will be very important. And he has several contributions, and he has done case-based neurology for psychiatrists also. I think I'm taking too much time, and I don't want to be a kind of wall between the speaker and several of his well-wishers who have joined him. Over to you, Professor E.V. Joshi. Thank you.
What is that writing on the screen?
That's something technical, sir. It always happens. You can just ignore that.
Yeah, we can. There is a whiteboard function. I think that has to be disabled. So thank you, Dr. Nair. Good to reconnect with you after Niman's days.
Maybe your graphics are probably your graphics have come probably. I mean, the background might have.
So I
That's-
acknowledge my friend Dr. Anand Kumar of Amrita and Dr. Asha Leta for inviting me and to contribute to this mixed audience. I later on came to know that Dr. Asha Leta is the niece of Dr. Ramakrishna Pillai, who was my role model there in Mafrakost. So we have a mixed audience of friends and family, the neurologists, psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, non-doctors, and from parts of India, Middle East, US, Canada, as I know it. So greetings from Bangalore, wishing you all happy Onam, although maybe virtual this year. So the topic of today is holistic neurology. Is that scratch coming on your screen?
That's okay, sir. It's fine.
Green.
Yeah, it's coming. Yeah.
Should I reconnect and see? Or just go ahead?
Just go ahead, sir. It's not making a big issue there.
Uh,
It's very clear.
So there is much ground to cover in 1 hour. So it will be only a glimpse of holistic neurology as a possibility. And then I'll take you to the world of quantum healing. And in the process, you will find that you can expand your consciousness. I invite you to listen from the right brain, that is holistic, an overview, or from the big picture. So don't go to the left brain for details. No need to take notes. So this will be recorded and will be available in the YouTube in a couple of days. So sit back and relax. So let's take a good deep breath together. I will also relax. The slides will do the talking. So use a large screen, laptop or iPad. So mobile will be like watching movie with only the audio, and causes a lot of eye strain. So in neurology practice, we deal with epilepsy, stroke, migraine, Parkinsonism, and so on. And everyday questions that patients ask are, I have seen a neurologist, but treatment is not effective. What is causing my symptoms? The doctor says the diagnosis is not clear. Why did this neuro condition happen to me? What are the chances that I can pass this on to my children? Is there a more effective treatment? Can it be cured? So holistic neurology is a new hope for neuro patients. So this will be the framework of the talk, that holistic neurology is an integrated approach to healing and it's created by an experienced neurologist. So it starts with a regular neurology consultation, testing and treatment. Then we go to a deeper level of diagnosis and treatment, autoantibody testing, genetic testing, and so on. finding the source of autoimmunity, leaky gut and immunoinflammation. So you keep on going to the source or the cause of the problems. So next we have chronic stress and vagus nerve activation. And the last two are about quantum healing, the eye rolling stuff. So, you can see, this auto antibody discovery timeline. In the past, 10 antibody in 30 years. And presently it's about 30 antibodies in 10 years. So autoimmune neurology was born. So now we have autoimmune epilepsy, autoimmune Parkinsonism, autoimmune encephalitis, and so on. So if you find the autoimmune cause, then the possibility of immunotherapy. And nowadays, if you find the cause is genetic, we are beginning to get epigenetic interventions. Epigenetic means above the genes. Nowadays, there are even drugs in the market which can switch on and switch off your DNA expressions. So DNA is not your destiny. And the other thing is the way you live influences how your genome works. In other words, genes express whatever a person desires. So it's becoming more treatable and reversible. Now this holistic neurology program is built on two words. That is finding the source of the problem and what is the access to the healing methods. So on each slide, the focus will be on the source and access. Now leaky gut is now become very well known for the source of immunoinflammation, which means the undigested food particles and toxins, they go inside and start an inflammatory response. So in my practice, what I do is I do this test called food intolerance test, wherein the IgG food antibodies are detected. So as the food goes inside the intestines, it's seen as foreign and is attacked by the gut immune system. And that will be the trigger of the immune problems. So now more and more studies are coming out, the gut-brain axis, intestinal inflammation, silent driver of Parkinson's disease. And they say Parkinson's disease begins in the gut. And there is even a gut originating inflammation driven pathogenesis. These are the 10 tips for gut health. So gut health starts with, we will look at all of these: belly breathing for vagus nerve activation, exercise program, food intolerance test, as I told you, and avoiding the 5 white culprits like maida, white rice, white salt, white sugar, excess milk, eliminate toxins and infections. And probiotics may not be good for everybody. Some with small intestine bowel overgrowth may get worse with that. And of course, stress reduction and fiber and other things. Now let's look at inflammation. The acute inflammation you see in infections, they are good and protective, but they are switched off after the infection. And now we have the tests like CRP to check for acute inflammation. Now chronic inflammation, there are no symptoms and it is bad and destructive. Cannot switch off the inflammation. And we have this test, high sensitive CRP. And now High sensitive CRP is a marker for metabolic syndrome, which leads to heart attack and strokes. So all the risk factors plus belly fat is called metabolic syndrome. So it is like injecting chronic stress hormone or steroid injections every day. So chronic stress works like that. And you get all the steroid side effects like central obesity, hypertension, insulin resistance, hyperlipidemia. So that is how this metabolic, well, that is the genesis of this metabolic syndrome. So chronic stress is at the source of metabolic syndrome, and that is from your emotional reaction or your survival mechanism. And that is unfortunately the human condition. Now let's look at the acute stress versus chronic stress. Acute stress, mostly we are aware of it, while chronic stress, we are not aware. It's the real silent killer. Some of us may be aware of this. The National Physician and Burnout Depression report of 2018. American Academy survey shows 60% of the neurologists practicing in US are burnt out. So we can imagine the situation in India. And if you look at the prevalence of physician burnout, you can see the neurologists are maximum. That is also the reason why we are not able to comprehend these holistic ideas and start practicing them. So what is this burnout about? Burnout is actually emotional exhaustion, and physicians become very negative, negative attitude towards profession and towards patients and feelings of detachment. And this will lead to inefficiency, obviously. So this Landmark Forum, you can go to a website called Landmark Worldwide. This is one of the transformational experience most effective in my life. Now, how do you diagnose chronic stress? Simple. Look at the belly fat. Larger your waist, higher your stress. Storage of stress in your belly fat. Why is this so? Why is the fat storage in momentum? Because famine was the chronic stress for our ancestors. So more the belly fat, it reduces the stress on the worry brain. Kind of body's way of comforting the brain because it's kept for the rainy day. The only problem with momental fat is that it goes directly into the liver and it's like a toxic dump. All the saturated fat is toxic. And the inflammatory factor in atherosclerosis. Now there are many studies showing low-grade systemic inflammation and development of diabetes. And inflammation precedes by many years the onset of vascular events. And the gut feeling about thrombosis. There's even anti-inflammatory therapy studies coming up now. And these CANTOS results show that anti-inflammatory therapy lowers future cardiovascular events and reduces cancer incidence and mortality. Did you know that antiplatelet therapy with aspirin and other antiplatelets does not work if there is inflammation in the body? Check out the studies. So do I have chronic stress? Most people are unaware that they are in this condition, and we continue to function like dim bulb. Now this is a new or an alternative medicine concept that I want to introduce called chronic reverse polarity. So here chronic stress is the key component, and I got an opportunity to work with this man who is in California, and I used to refer him patients who do not respond to our treatment. So he would, after finishing his treatment, the same medicines the patients will start responding to them. So what he says is the earth and body a magnet, and chronic reverse polarity, the shift in the polarity of the body that changes the way electrical conduction flows through the cells. So our body has a north and a south pole, just as the earth does. When something causes a shift in our system, usually a traumatic or stressful event in one's life, our axis also changes. Thus, your poles have reversed, and your body cannot operate in the most perfect way. So the symptoms of chronic reverse polarity, all these tired feeling, and this is a big component in ME or chronic fatigue syndrome. So now the studies are showing that stress signaling pathways that impair the prefrontal cortex structure and function. It's like the limbic loop or the fear loop takes over the sensible brain, which is the prefrontal loop. So that is a kind of upside down situation wherein prefrontal lobe is supposed to extinguish fear. So all the time you are in survival. Now there is a test for chronic reverse polarity. It's by watching your breathing. So let's do this simple test here. Now I request everybody to participate in this small test. So place your left hand on the chest and the right hand on the belly. Take a few deep breaths. See which hand is moving with the breath. So if you find your chest is moving out during the in-breath, then you are reversed or you are under chronic stress. Now the remedy for chronic stress also is breathing. So you practice belly breathing or what is called as diaphragmatic breathing. So breathe into the belly. So the belly hand should be moving. The chest hand should not be moving. So let's practice that for a minute. Take some deep, slow breaths and breathe into your belly. This is like if you watch a baby while sleeping, you can see the tummy going up and down. It's called belly breathing. It may take a while for, if you're reversed, it may take a while for you to get this right, actually. So in essence, chronic reverse polarity is a stuck state of the body in chronic stress. Tested with breathing, treated with belly breathing, spirulina and landmark forum. So you will have all this recorded, and all this is available on my website. You can download them actually, and in 2 days time this is going to be on the YouTube. So stay in the right brain mode, in the holistic mode. Just sit back and relax. Now, what is this vagus nerve activation? Vagus nerve is the commander in chief when it comes to having grace under pressure. By the way, this photo is actually my grandfather's brother, who was Bodhananda Swamigal, who inherited Narayana Guru Swami's organization after his samadhi. So vagus nerve gets its name from vagabond. It's the largest nerve with the widest distribution, and it covers 5 out of 7 chakras in the body. It senses energy. Chakras, as you know, senses energy and receiver of energy, and it connects to breathing. Actually, the entire yoga, pranayam system, everything works through this system only. Now, in our practice, we use vagus nerve stimulator, and it's FDA approved for epilepsy and depression. There are many more promising conditions that are coming with vagus nerve stimulation, wherein you have a pacemaker like thing and the wire gets connected to the vagus nerve. This is the vagus nerve, and it stimulates the vagus nerve. So it's essentially the autonomic nervous system, sympathetic, causing stress response, and you have no control over it. Whether you want it or not, the stress response comes. The limbic loop or the fear loop takes over. While the parasympathetic system is responsible for the relaxation response or the vagal tone. This is where vagus nerve activation helps. So belly breathing and 2 other yoga techniques are there for vagus nerve activation. Now there is a third thing called coherence, called heart coherence. And this is not relaxation response. So how do you do this? While breathing, you think of love and appreciation. Think of your grandchildren. These are my grandchildren. Think of the grandchildren or think of your children, and you create. So while breathing itself, you can imagine. So emotional aspect also is taken care of. So in a minute or two, you can come to heart coherence. So stress response versus relaxation response versus heart coherence. So coherence is the state when the heart, mind, and emotions are in energetic alignment and cooperation. So it is a state that builds resilience, so that personal energy is accumulated and not wasted, leaving more energy to manifest intentions and harmonious outcomes. So individual coherence leads to social coherence and global coherence. Now we have a small video. Sometimes video may be a little choppy. It's just a couple of minutes only.
So there's a problem with the audio, I think so. Audio is not coming. This video has audio. So the audio is not coming.
So I'm sorry, there was audio. I heard the audio was not, you're not able to hear the audio. Anyway, you can go to this HeartMath Institute, HeartMath Institute website. You will find these videos. So let's have a recap. Take a breath. So far, what we have covered is we covered neurology and autoimmune neurology and genetic neurology. Then the source of that autoimmunity. We talked about the food intolerance test, leaky gut syndrome. We found that chronic inflammation is at the source of that metabolic syndrome. Then chronic stress, physician burnout, chronic reverse polarity. We looked at the vagus nerve activation therapy, heart coherence, and of course you have anti-inflammatory diet therapy, Ayurvedic treatment for gut health. We find the source of the immune issues. And we briefly touched upon the epigenetic interventions. Nowadays we have consciousness-based healing. And next we will look at quantum healing and two aspects of it, which are Akash and innate. So your chronic illness is an opportunity for your personal transformation. So this is what we are going to look at in the part 2, quantum healing, or I call soul medicine. So let's look at the true nature of human beings. So I have to build up on some basics here. So what is dimensionality or reality? The scientists say that there are 11 dimensions, and these are hidden dimensions or realities. And the universe itself is made up of multi-dimensional membranes, and each membrane has got its own dimension and time frame is different. For us, it's very easy to understand if you look at dreams. So dreams is another dimension, another reality for sure. And so we are multi-dimensional beings, and quantum healing is also another reality as such. So matter, energy, and consciousness. When I say consciousness here, we're not talking like how we use in neurology. Here consciousness means awareness. Matter, as you know, is frozen energy. And the human being is made of all three, is not? Matter, which is our body, biology is made of matter, and we have energy, which is electrical, magnetic, we do magnetic encephalogram, other things. And consciousness is nothing but awareness. Even the thoughts, mind, all that is nature of which is consciousness, awareness. So consciousness is how we know we exist. So I am here, I exist, I have a life, and there are things around me that refer to me. So that kind of awareness is called consciousness. That is also the ultimate truth. I exist. Actually the only truth. Rest of it is all created, forged. So you are consciousness or awareness. Now we have limited consciousness and expanded consciousness. Now limited awareness is the survival mind, the human self, the religious left brain, and the knowledge all is limited. While expanded consciousness is about expanded awareness, creative mind, higher self, spiritual right brain, or you can say being, soul, and all that. So this terminology, is means all the same: expanded consciousness, higher self, God self, soul, pure possibility, pure potential, clearing, space, being, self. So essentially, it's about expanded consciousness becoming limited consciousness. You can see the soul, and when it comes to the intuitive self through the right brain, then the human self, the mind, the personality, then the language comes out through the left brain as thoughts. So this is how the structure of consciousness goes. Now the creation process is actually from consciousness to energy to matter. So first there is consciousness, that is you, and there is neutral energy potential in the field. So with your intention, you start manifesting the matter. That's not difficult to understand. There was no airport, there was no airport before. So few people sat together and they had a meeting, and in about few years time, I'll finish. So consciousness to human. No, it's okay. So the consciousness through the human DNA field, and brain is the interface, and this comes to as our physical reality. This is essentially the physics, or this is actually my understanding of consciousness. You can't manage that. How? No, that they are. Where is the race? It's okay. Sorry for the distraction. So Albert Einstein said the human being is spatially and temporally limited piece of the whole, what we call the universe. And he experiences himself as his feelings as separate from the rest, an optical illusion for his consciousness. Now, what is quantum? This is the difficult part to understand. So I use this analogy of hardware and software. Hardware is physical and software is non-physical, like the brain and the mind, and the body and the body intelligence software, which I call innate. So matter and consciousness, and physics and quantum physics is like that. So mind and matter. So in physics, you have calculations, and they are predictable to get the rocket into the space. While in quantum, the behavior of the matter changes when you observe. So the wave energy becomes particle matter when you look at it. That is called the wave collapsing function in quantum physics. Applying this to your your personality means your behavioral patterns creates your personal reality. Your personality creates your personal reality. So here you are more matter, predictable, and less energy field, which is unpredictable. So if you need to create a new reality, heal body, create more energy field, a new possibility. So body is more flexible, should start seeing as less solid. Is this making any sense? So in essence, life is about management of energy. So this is called mind-body medicine. The official terminology used in the government of US, NIH, is mind-body medicine. Now Deepak Chopra calls it quantum healing. Dr. Anand Kumar calls it space medicine. I call it soul medicine. Sadhguru calls it life energy. In landmark education, they call it transformation. And in yoga, Vedic, this thing they call it Ayurveda. And in epigenetic intervention, mind over matter is also nowadays referred to as epigenetic intervention. So these are all coming under quantum healing. The only problem here is this quantum reality cannot be understood, known, or explained, because this is beyond logic and it makes no sense, and you cannot be convinced because this is beyond mind and not conceptual. Concepts makes us blind. We never look beyond it because concepts become truth for us. Therefore, these abstractions cannot be understood. You can only discover it for yourself. You can experience and live it. And this is what makes a difference. So in the Landmark Forum, we learned the distinction between informative learning and transformative learning. Informative learning adds to people's skills by bringing new knowledge, and transformative learning gives people an awareness of the basic structures in which they know, think, and act. Going to the paradigm level or the context level. So from that awareness comes a fundamental shift that leaves people more fully in accord with their own possibilities and those of others. And this shift is the single most powerful attribute of transformation. Now let's go to the soul encounter. So if you want evidence, you can look at the studies on near-death experience, wherein somebody dies, they go meet with their soul and they come back. And there are many reports in the literature about near-death experience. There is also another area called a spontaneous remission in cancers, like a young lady, I remember, I have seen few spontaneous remissions. One of them was bone tumor spreading all over the body, including the brain, causing paralysis. And before they could start any chemotherapy, some prayer group prays for her from Philippines. And in about 2-3 days time, she's totally healed. And the cancer disappears from her body and she walks out of the hospital. So there are about 3,000 cases reported so far. There are books on it. You can check the literature, Medline, on spontaneous remission. So how is this possible? This is possible only with the quantum healing or at the soul level. So the 4 attributes of healing are, there is nothing outside of this, what is mentioned here. Biochemistry, genetic inheritance, then this Akashic template and consciousness. Now the final common pathway is biochemistry. So the biochemistry has to be disordered in order to manifest illness. So it can come from genetic, it can also come from Akashic, and it can also come from fragmented consciousness or chronic stress. So I use this analogy of computers again. So biochemistry is like the computer CPU, and your genetics is like the hard disk data, and Akashic template is like your software, and consciousness is you. So it gives us the power, ultimately you have the power to change the software, to rewrite the hard disk to rewrite your future and change the biochemistry. Now that is the power of the quantum U. Now let's look at what is this Akash thing. Have you ever wondered where your personality comes from? What about your fears and phobias? What creates a child prodigy? I remember Dr. Anand always shows the videos of a small child playing piano like a professional. And is it possible that you have lived before? So this is the human Akash, a discovery of the blueprint within. So the Akashic template is actually the past life memory, or what we in plain language called as karma. Unfortunately, mostly the negative experiences. That is because the classroom or the mass consciousness has to change. So as long as the mass consciousness is low, you can only experience negative experiences. And these templates are stored in the quantum DNA. And these patterns manifest in the body into the biochemistry as illness, sicknesses, and all that. Now let's look at the influencing fields of the human being. So the four fields are fear, joy, love, and innate. So these fields are there around our body. So this body intelligence, if you think of body as a hardware and the software will be the body intelligence, and we call it innate. And the hardware software interface is the DNA. You can see here that the just one single cell, the fertilized egg with the DNA from both the parents, gives rise to the entire human being. You started life as a cell, and the power of DNA you can make out from this. And as Sadhguru says, your grandfather's nose sitting on your face is this past life memory. So actually, I consider brain as just as an interface or transducer, as Dr. Anand Kumar puts it. And I consider the super brain is actually the DNA or the quantum DNA. So the cells are run by this body intelligence software, and visualize the innate and DNA like this, like a quantum field. Now this is one documentary. It's called The One Field. It's very interesting. It has just recently come out, and you have the link for this here. I have a small video clip, but the sound doesn't come out of that. So what is important in this film is I showed you about the Global Coherence Project from HeartMath Institute. There is another project called as Global Consciousness Project from Princeton University, wherein they actually measured consciousness and demonstrated that various worldwide events can cause changes in the consciousness level. So can spirit be measured And is there a field that connects to everything? Can we use consciousness to influence our lives, our bodies, and our environment beyond genes or environmental limitations into which we were born? So we are standing on the doorstep of an entirely new paradigm, understanding the human energetic fields. So you are sitting in your soul. You ask me, where is the soul? You are sitting in your soul. And quantum DNA is the seat of your soul. So soul medicine, you have access to the Akashic template and access to the innate. And these ideas are very simple. You can talk to your cells, use the consciousness to impact your health. Download 2 apps. This is again your access. This is Akashic Power by Cryon and Affirmations for Your Soul by Cryon. So this will enable you to practice this and gain access to the Akashic rewriting. You can rewrite your future with these apps. There are few prerequisites to accessing quantum healing. Pure intent is one of them. This personal integrity is extremely important to access this area. And thirdly, to realize who and what you are, that you are the soul, the conscious creator of your own reality. If you don't understand any of this, what is the essence of quantum healing? From physician to patient is to create peace in their heart. This is also the definition of quantum healing. So we practice this at Satya Sai Hospital. We have a counseling team, around 30 members, and every patient entering the hospital goes through this kind of counseling, wherein they are taught relaxation exercises and so on. So the innate spirituality is used to help to heal. This is the essence of the Sai counseling. And this, lastly, this is my message to Dr. Ashalita. Integrate life beyond neurology with life in neurology. We can do this in the clinic. If you change your paradigm as a chronic illness as an opportunity for personal transformation. So every patient that comes to us can be seen as a soul, and what you can help them to make that illness as an opportunity for personal transformation. So this is what I call by finding color in the world of gray. So neurology to holistic neurology, a deeper level of treatment and quantum healing is finding color in the world of gray. Visiting our website creates value for you. Download the course materials. The website is the holisticneurology.com. holistic-neurology.com. So this was the gift of the Corona times, wherein I could make this website. So please visit the website and mark your remarks. So listening is an act of love, and thank you for your listening. You have to unmute, Dr. Nayak.
I'm doing, sir. They can unmute, sir, actually.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Joshi, for that wonderful discourse on the life beyond neurology coupled to life in neurology. That was a very good message. And I think your talk was divided into two parts. The first part was fairly, understandable at our level because it was addressing many skills, to relieve the chronic background to understand that.
I think your audio is breaking.
Or yeah, no.
So,
So the second part was tough for us. That's what I.
Yeah, second part deserves a separate session.
Second,
then you can go in more detail.
Yeah, and you kind of made it quite simple. There is no doubt, but maybe the problem with our physics and mathematics that we did not go into these areas, and we went into the biology. But then you have combined the DNA, which is the basis of life, and to the quantum dynamics, which was a fantastic paradigm shift for me. And I think you are on the real um, solid ground, and you, Dr. Anand Kumar, then Dr. Anup Ranjan Verma, he is another great person who worked with Trimble at UK. And Trimble is very much fascinated with the role of spirituality and brain. Okay, so these kind of discourse are very important. And then you also talked about the Sadhguru's inner engineering. So many people and so many influence. And I have seen a couple of his what you call the workshops or the talks which he does. And I talk, especially when he's sitting with a rationalist, very difficult, to understand, and the wavelength between the rationalist will be doing it just on a materialistic way. So I think you have the gap between the material and the spiritual through your quantum dynamics and the other things. So I think, Dr. Asha, you can open it up for discussion and make some expert comments from our panel.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much, sir, from all of us. It was a very erudite and I should say astounding.
Too much heavy. So heavy.
Hope I'm audible now.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. And,
I think you can close the video and leave the audio because audio is breaking up now.
Yeah, probably you can off the video.
I'll start off some.
I think probably you can off the video and talk.
I can't hear anything here actually.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
breaking up actually. Yeah. Or any questions are there? Hello.
Joshi,
Yeah.
can I ask you one question? Where does Reiki energy transformation fits into this Reiki practice?
Yeah, Reiki is good. It's all the same. The fields. These are quantum fields in the human energy field actually. So you if you're trained to channelize that energy, just placing your hands, the energy starts flowing and you can actually feel that, and the patient also can feel that heat.
Good. Elon Musk, the man who started the electric car, has already put in a company which is connecting the brain to the computers. I think this will come.
Computer interface. It's coming.
Yeah, interface.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your very nice
welcome.
and yeah, thank you.
Dr. Joshi.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Rajiv. Go ahead.
Joshi, I wanted to ask you, would you say that meditation would be the starting step for understanding the whole processes that you have outlined today?
Say that again. Medication.
Meditation. No,
meditation. Okay.
Yoga, meditation, all that stuff. Would you say that it would be the starting point for getting into understanding the whole processes that you outlined today?
No. Meditation is like a double-edged sword. If it is not done correctly, you can have problems with it. So in my 10 years of experience at Satya Sai, I get many patients from Puttaparthi, where a lot of spiritual people they keep practicing. and they have epilepsy, pseudo seizures, so many psychiatric issues, and they will be practicing various forms of meditations. So the effective remedy for that, I would suggest that to stop all meditations and do only breathing. So the abdominal breathing or the diaphragmatic breathing is the way to go. That is also a medically approved technique used in psychology, psychiatry, the belly breathing. So if I don't have time in the clinic, I tell them, go to the YouTube, find belly breathing and start practicing it.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Joshi, can I ask you one question?
Sure.
Is there, because we are grounded in neurophysiology, is there any electrophysiology of the mind? Means can you have an electrical correlate of an idea or a thought or evil intention, something like that?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, the small video clip I showed you, it's called The One Field. That is the latest research. It has just published, or it has come to this thing last month. I think you should go and see that. You can see that video clip.
The other thing is when we surf your website, is these downloadable? Because everything is, you have put a cart thing is there.
Yeah, everything is downloadable. There is a small fees for that. Yeah, there is a small fees for fees for that. Otherwise, it will be misused.
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
so
that's what I was.
I want only the committed ones to
That's good.
Get it. Yeah.
Okay, so the committed one, can they get a free gateway?
Yeah, you can just email me. Anybody who needs anything, you can email me and I'll send it to you through the. You can share it through the Google Drive. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Dr. Joshi, just taking on the excellent term that was used, the electrophysiology of the Akash, or the quantum, or the consciousness rather. This is a question I have it in my mind, having worked in psychiatry for so many years. I know we were trained from Newman's, the left side of the brain, how the brain functions. We know how the impulses come from motor cortex to our hands, to our legs, how the impulses come from the reticular activating system through we know all the physiology, right? But what bothers me, what questions, always I have a question is, the thoughts we get, as I speak, there are millions of thoughts that are going on in my mind. I'm sure lots of thoughts going on everyone's mind. We know it's a frontal lobe, all right, or limbic lobe. But where is that coming from? Where is connection, or the efferent above the frontal or limbic that is sending those thoughts into our brain? This is a question which always bugs me, and I'm getting some answers from your wonderful lecture. Probably the consciousness or the quantum DNA or somewhere. There must be somewhere else.
Actually these thoughts are not yours. They are coming from the mass consciousness field. The interface through which they come is your DNA field. So if you visualize your body as a DNA field, quantum field, your emotions and thoughts, everything, that's what I talked about the classroom. As long as the classroom is fixed, the mass consciousness is fixed, it's very hard to, to get effects after meditation and yogic practices and enlightenment. Otherwise, it takes such a lot of effort to break through this mass consciousness and evolve actually.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Joshi Boss, the final awareness is at the enlightenment, no? Final.
Yeah.
Means the highest level.
Yeah.
Is it enlightenment according to the yogic philosophy and other things,
Yeah.
where your consciousness has ascended to such an extent that it merges with the cosmos? So that is enlightenment, or what is according to you?
Yeah. Actually, we are all already enlightened.
Okay.
Because, yeah, we are not aware of it. Because of this limited consciousness, we are not aware of it. Our true nature is enlightenment.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah.
so Dr. Gopal Krishnadas, who was our previous speaker, he was also touching upon this landmark course and all. Gopal, would you want to comment something on it?
We may be having a landmark forum leader in this group. My friend.
I thought you are the leader.
No. My friend, Mr. Mahesh Nambiar, he had told me that he would attend this session. Yeah.
So, any one of you? Or,
I have done landmark forum almost 8
introduce
years
yourself,
back.
Gopal. Gopal, can you introduce yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I am Dr. Gopal Krishnadas. I studied in Sri Chitra Tirunal Institute, and currently I am working in the Narayana Hrudayalaya Hospital in Bangalore. Regarding the landmark education, I have done landmark forum almost 8 years back, and what I found that it is a personal development program. And this is they start the program for 3 days, and it was quite helpful for me. I was going through a stressful period of my life in 2012, and I did that. But what I personally feel that all personal development program, nothing works unless a person is committed to work. For example, this kind of webinars, it gives some sort of motivation to most people for a short duration of time. It gives a very short kick unless the people go back and work on themselves. This kind of discussions actually may be short-lived. Again, we go back to our real life, and then the same thing continues. That's what I feel. Many people have done landmark, and many of my friends also have done landmark. But the thing is that probably it really may not be transformative unless somebody really works from within on daily basis. That is what I feel.
Thank you, Gopal. So there's one question which somebody has put. It's between the difference between religiosity and spirituality. Does religiosity lead on to spirituality, or we can attain spirituality without religiosity? So what is the interface, sir?
Yeah, I am a good example of spirituality without religiosity. I've never done any pujas or even prayed. Prayed to God. So it is a left brain. Religious is left brain, and that is the lying brain, actually. And while spirituality is the right brain, it's a higher level of consciousness. I showed you one slide in which how the expanded consciousness becomes limited. So I feel religion is a chain in the feet of humanity. Right now, it's causing maximum killings and deaths and problems. It's time that we transcend religion and we discover. And spirituality means discovering yourself, that you are the soul. I don't believe in any other type of spirituality.
Somebody wants to go to the church or the mosque or temple and find peace of mind there, and that is their way to spirituality. Yeah. Would you mind
that's
going
fine,
against it?
No, just like you go to the doctor, that is also fine. You can create, if they create some peace in your heart, that is good.
If I can add something here,
Yeah.
I have a colleague here who is also a psychiatrist here in Canada. She is actually a white female psychiatrist. She's a good friend of mine. She told me her father was an atheist. I was sharing with her about my experiences with the Sathya Sai Hospital, where I had met Dr. Joshi again after our Nimas days. This psychiatrist, she was telling me her father was an atheist, but he brought up his children, always told them, like, you don't need to believe in any God, you don't need to believe in any religion. Practice good, practice caring. So this lady, she is a wonderful person. She's a wonderful soul. She does everything that I can hear from Sathya Sai preachings, but she's not religious at all. She doesn't believe in God.
Correct.
Can I make a comment here? I'm Dr. Gopal Krishna again.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, absolutely true. Actually, without following the religious principle, there are many leaders in the world. They are highly spiritual. Neil Donald Walsh, a person, a renowned author, he has written many books, Conversation with God, but he does not talk much about religion. And also recently, in 2012, Stephen Covey died, and he has written the most powerful personal development book in 1990, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And they also, if you read their books, they also do not promote religion, but still they are highly spiritual. So there are many leaders in the world, those who are actually not religious, but they are highly spiritual. But traditionally what happens is that most people, they become religious and then turn to the spiritual angle. But there are many leaders in the world, they believe that spirituality is something which is independent of the religion.
I think Sadhguru also says the same thing. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Joshi, what is the meaning of the word spirit? Not the ethyl alcohol, the real spirit which you are aware. What is that spirit? Is it soul?
No, spirit, the word meaning comes from the term breath. The spirit. That is why spirometry. Spirometry came from spirit, like that. Yeah.
Because I was reading some literature where they were educating the people about these various holistic principles. So one of the principles they are saying is praying for the patient, or a prayer. And this becomes very important when you are going through end of life issues and all those things. And you have religious people coming up and praying, and in our own experience, if you are belonging to the Hindu philosophy, they will come and put the kumkumam or basmam, in the early morning, or chandanam, and then these kind of. So what is the logic of prayer? Does it go with religiosity, or does it go with spirituality? Prayer as just as an action.
I think anything that works is fine, to create peace.
Okay, that's a very good. Okay.
That's good, sir. So one last question, sir. From mind, you entered the realm of soul, and then finally ended with the spirit. Are they all the same? And are the seeds of all this in the brain? The mind, the soul, the spirit, everything.
What is the question again, please?
So I was speaking about mind, then he came to soul, and then the spirit. So people always have this confusion whether all the seat of all this is in the brain, or some people say it's in the heart, some people say it's in the stomach, and again there are a group of people say it's in the middle of the spinal cord. These are all from literature. So I was just wondering whether you can throw some light into it. Mind, soul, spirit, everything.
Yeah. The problem with this is now we have to use the mind.
So where is this mind, sir?
Yeah, mind to describe this. To answer this, I have to use my mind. And these things are beyond mind. And the quantum world itself is not amenable to description or understanding. So it's very foolish, according to me, to try and define and analyze these terms, spirit and this. Each one can understand, yeah, in a different way. For example, I showed you that big inverted triangle from expanded consciousness to the limited consciousness. I think that will be more appealing for the scientific minds. And
is mind the intellect?
That is, yeah. In our science, we are very poor in describing the different aspects. Actually, in Vedic literature, it is they are far Chit, Anand, Sat, Chit, Anand, all that, descriptions are far beyond our ability to explain what is intellect, what is mind, what is, Sadhguru explains it nicely, actually.
He calls it intellect.
Yeah, he calls it intellect.
Yeah.
Intellect. Whereas intellect is itself very difficult to define.
Yeah,
What is intellect?
Intelligence is different from intellect. Intelligence is the universal intelligence, Intellect is the one which is in our brain, Intellect. Intellect is actually our enemy to some extent. That is the one which causes maximum illness. That is the one which doubts, fights, and all those worry thoughts, analyzes, all those stuff, And when you have a trouble, you wake up in the night and your intellect starts creating. And the cells starts listening to that intellect. Because you are the leader, no? Your mind is a leader. That is a consciousness. The body just listens to the thoughts, to the worry. So all the time is bombarded. It's not all right. It's dangerous. So what should the cells do?
That's good, sir. So one final question. So what should we do to bring down this chronic stress, which is part and parcel of today's life? You said that acute stress we all can identify, but chronic stress is something which is innate, and we are not able to understand whether it's there because it is living with us. So what is your final take-home message for all of us? Chronic stress is the killer. You said it causes stroke, it causes all the sort of inflammation in the body. So what should we do to finally underpin this chronic stress?
Yeah. We should propagate it, but there is no money in it. Because there is no medicine, there is no procedure.
So if you can give us some homework to do, we'll all try that, sir.
Yeah, that is a course in itself. Actually, I have a course on chronic stress, and actually that takes us to the human condition, basically, and that takes us to our limbic loop, the fear loop. How it's all from survival. So the whole effort is to step out of the survival. Actually, step out of this time. Then we are all enlightened. Then everything disappears as a stress. What practically I do for myself is I get woken up every day at 3 o'clock in the night. I don't want to wake up, but I just wakes up. And then I spend an hour or so in listening to some channels or music or not actually meditation. That is a time that is what I called as safe space. So each one of us can have this safe space. Could be just music, walking, taking out time for yourself, so healing time. And it's just amazing for me, like when I go to bed, I'm sick and I feel I won't be able to go for work tomorrow. And night I get up and do this and then I sleep again. And morning I'm fit as a fiddle. So, but this works like taking bath. You need to do it every day. See, it's nothing like this permanent thing, So healing consciousness, we are always baby. in that. We are always transforming. There is nothing like a transformed state. So it's always working and being in that fluid space. That make any sense?
It's making some sense. And somebody has put a comment that it is Brahma Muhurta, so whatever is done during that period of time works well. So,
just if I can just add there another thing, Dr. Joshi in his lecture did give some take-home advice as well, and that is abdominal breathing. I think he kind of emphasized quite strongly on the abdominal breathing. For I think it's likely to help the chronic stress also. Correct, Dr. Joshi?
Correct. Yeah.
I have a very simple formula, because if there is no breath, you are gone. So that is apnea. So if you can emancipate your breathing, which I always do in my patients, ask them to do this pranayama and fortify their respiratory system. I don't know, because my thing is that you are hearing this in the COVID times, happy hypoxia, wherein they are looking okay like, but they are already hypoxic, and suddenly they tilt towards a significant moribund hypoxia. So, and this I have borne out from my own personal cases, and majority of EV will agree with his neuromuscular background. Many of our patients with neuromuscular chronic diseases, they're finally going to pass away because of their respiratory issues. So I think it's a good thing what you have suggested, the breathing kind of thing, whether it is belly breathing or diaphragmatic breathing or just thoracic breathing, there's several ways are there. So that will definitely, the final common thing is oxygen, which is important for survival. As you know, the brain takes 20% of oxygen for its metabolism. So that it cannot sustain what you call the apnea for more than 6 seconds. So therefore, I think as you suggested, the breath becomes very, very important. This is my opinion.
Yeah, you're on the right track.
Just a clinical kind of suggestion. I really appreciated the way you brought in so many concepts and opened our eyes. There is beyond biology, so many things are happening, and you coupled with biology also. Especially, I was quite about the gut axis, and there is a whole lot of immunology happening in the gut, as you said, and you have now the entire Parkinson's situation starting in the gut and several other and you immunize against poliomyelitis through the gut. That is one more thing in that favor. So I think overall the entire your concepts are very strong in terms of the biology, in terms of its physical dimension, and all those transformation which you have told. Really, it was a great eye opener to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Shall we close it?
Thank you so much, sir. If one of your friends would want to have a chat with you, it's open. Anand Kumar sir, my uncle Dr. Amoshnavala sir, and we have the ISRO Deputy Director Dr. Aravamuthan sir here. So any one of you would like to take 1 or 2 minutes, you're welcome to do that.
Sure.
Hello, Joshi.
Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
So I was keeping quiet because I wanted people to have the maximum from Joshi.
Yeah, I'm making it easy for your space medicine.
Yes. We talk the same language in different dialects. Only thing, I have been associated with Joshi for long years, and he's more than a brother to me. And we have had several occasions where I go and sit by his side to get some positive energy. And maybe we can call him the Sadguru of neurology.
Oh, thank you.
Only thing I am sort of introducing the discipline of speciology, where you can break it down to some scientific experiments, not at the extremes where it is beyond logic at the quantum level, and at the other extreme, which is the unknowable. Except at these ends, we can sort of break it down into experiments, and I'm doing that with space, spatial energy, space, mind, medicine, spatial connectivity, social space, the self and the space and spirituality, because all these years we are looking into the patient or into the person. But instead of that, we can look at the inner space of the person and the space around the patient. That's what Joshi was talking about, the fields and all. And these can be studied, because the last time I was talking about dogs who can sense and warn patients with epilepsy before it clinically sets in. This means that a lot of things happening around the patient, in the space around the patient, which can be detected by non-contact sensors. So that is how I'm planning my studies, and look at the inner space. For example, he was talking about the coherence. You can look at the RR variability, the HR variability, and the heart-derived brain potentials, because in MBBS we have been taught that the heart rate is regular in rhythm and amplitude, and the respiratory rate. Unfortunately, a lot of studies have come in heart rate variability. So this means that there's a subtle variation between one beat to the next beat. Similarly, there is a difference or a subtle variation from one breath to another breath. Similarly, there is a gap between the intuitive silence of the brain and the origin of thoughts. No? So this is a beat to beat, breath to breath, silence to silence coherence. So this also can be studied to a certain extent, as Professor Nair was telling, by electrophysiology or looking at the heart rate variability. And there are very few studies on RR variability, because the most important thing for us is the breath, as per the Eastern concept. And part of our lungs is in the plants and trees. And we will have to look at the connectivity, the external spatial connectivity of the human beings. And I have sort of divided it into different components, and I will be working on it for the rest of my life. And I expect Joshi to contribute hugely to my project.
Thank you for sharing all that.
Thank you so much, sir. And now I think we can hear from a cardiologist. Kocha, where are you?
I'm here. I'm audible?
Yes.
Audible, yeah.
Dr. Pillai.
Joshi, it has been an exhilarating experience, wonderful experience to listen to you. And I've learned a lot.
Louder.
I've learned a lot.
Come closer.
Am I audible now?
Better.
Your head is not seen, only heart is seen.
Your face, yeah. You yourself can adjust it, Kocha. Just look at the screen.
Dr. Joshi, thank you. I really appreciate it. I have to go now. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation and inviting. Thank you. Bye now. Bye-bye.
Yeah, now you're seeing.
Is it okay now?
Not really, but it's okay.
Yeah. Joshi, it has been extremely useful for me to sit here and listen to you. I have learned a lot of things. Many things that you said were new to me, and somewhere really beyond my comprehension as well. And now listening to you, I feel that the concept of holistic medicine will be applicable to other specialties as well, including cardiology, not only for neurology. Now, your topic, the name of the topic also impressed me. Finding color in the world of gray. I was interested in this word. What do you mean by word? Am I audible?
Yes.
We define world as a spatial concept. We say that the world is where we live in. The prepositions where and indicate that it is a spatial concept. But actually it is a notional concept. the world is a sum total of our consciousness and experience and knowledge. My world is different from my friend's world, maybe different from a cat's world. And in fact, there are as many worlds as there are people, or there are as many worlds as there are living things. And when the person dies, when I die, the world dies. It is like a bubble. Probably Eduthuchan realized this when he said that Garbhasthanai Bhuvi Janichum Marichum Udagapola Bole. It is like a bursting of a bubble. So we are in this bubble, and when it comes to an end, our world comes to an end. And we are also talking about where this soul is situated. And I can say that in the Bhagavad Gita, in 3 chapters, it is said that it is in the heart. I'm telling it more or less like a joke. In chapter 13, it is said, in chapter 18, it is said, Ishara Sarvabhudaram Hridayasya Arjuna Tishtati. In chapter 15, it is said, Sarvasya Yaham Hridayasya Nivishto. In chapter 13, Hridayasya Arjuna Tishtati. So, that is actually this is situated in every cell, in every molecule. Our Paramatma is situated in every cell. And what is the difference between a dead cell and a living cell? The Atma is not there anymore. The Jiva is not there anymore. So I think that is it is present in every cell, in every human being. We can't really define where exactly it is. Do you have any opinion on this?
Yeah, great, sir. I am interested in access. Knowledge is something, knowing is something, but what is the access and how do we make it practical? You know, that is the area in which I am interested in. How do you catch all of this soul and bring it for healing and things?
Yeah.
Anyone else? Arambatan sir. He's the director from ISRO. So would you like to comment something? So are you there? Okay, sir. I think sir is not there. So thank you so much, sir. It's been a pleasure to hear from you. And as many people said, we are just beginners, that we need to go a long way. We'll try to, and we love to hear from you again and again to enrich whatever you have started off today. So we would like to hear from you again. Hope you also enjoyed the session, although the audience was not as powerful as you, but you have opened a new vista to us, and we'll definitely be happy to go through that. And thanks from all the postdoctoral fellows of epilepsy from Sri Chitra. This is a venture from all of us here. So thank you once again, sir, and thank you Anand Kumar sir and Emilnar sir. So we'll be meeting soon. Every month we have one session only for this, that is life beyond what the academics is. We just named it neurology because we are neurologists, but it's just life beyond what academics can do. So again, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nayak sir. Thank you, everyone.
Wish you all the best and happy Onam.
Happy Onam. Thank you so much.
Hi, Anand. Good night.
Thank you so much.